So, thank you everybody for coming to the ORT's last workshop of 2023 called Tips and Tricks, Time Management for Researchers. My name's Jordan and I'm the coordinator of the Office of Research Trainees, and I'm joined here today by a colleague, the manager of the ORT, Amanda Berry. Before I jump into the meat of the workshop, I just wanted to give everybody a quick little introduction to the Office of Research Trainees, just in case if anybody's not super familiar with us, and to give you an idea of what we do. So just as our contact information on the screen here. And so what is the Office of Research Trainees? So the ORT is a centralized support and information hub for trainees and postdoctoral researchers here at UHN. We offer so many different things like professional and career development programming, skills training, workshops, just like what you're attending here today. We offer conference funding at different points within the year, and so much more, but just a few, a high-level overview of what we do. And our team is made up of the director, Dr. Penn, the manager, as I mentioned, Amanda, Dr. Berry, and then as well myself, the coordinator. So one thing I would like to plug, since it is a really great resource that we do offer, the ORT's put together a handbook. It's called the Student and Postdoc Handbook. So this is a comprehensive guide of tons and tons of information on UHN policies, benefits, services, research services, wellness supports, ways to get involved, how to get settled in Toronto. I mean, the list could go on and on. So this is a really great resource that I highly recommend you check out. So the QR code on the screen will link you to the website where you can go and download the most updated version of that. Spread the word about this one because I find it a really helpful guide. So I mean, like as I mentioned, this is the last workshop of this year, but we do have a couple little things to finish off. We do have a couple more drop-in sessions. Tomorrow at Toronto Rehab Institute, and then on Friday on Zoom, our last a virtual session. As well, looking a little bit ahead into January, we do have a teaching dossiers and EDI statements workshop, and this is put on in collaboration with some other research hospitals in Toronto as part of the From Postdoc to Research faculty crash course, so something to check out. One last thing, we are also in the process of planning our programming into 2024, and we really do want to hear what you want and what types of programming you are interested in. So again, if Amanda could drop the link to the ideas form into the chat, this is a great way to have your voice heard when we're planning these types of things. So again, I do encourage you to fill out that if you're interested. So now jump into the thing that you're here to talk about, so time management. So just a couple housekeeping things I do want to begin with is this webinar is being recorded, as you may have caught on at the beginning. And we will share the recording with everybody after the event. So please do keep an eye on your inboxes within the next couple of days, and you should see that pop up. As well, I've made this workshop to be fairly interactive, so there'll be a lot of breaking points within the workshop where you can share your ideas primarily through Slido. But if you want to unmute yourself and interject out loud, you're more than welcome to. It's a safe space for everybody, so please feel free to speak up, share your ideas. So I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. So there has been a UHN hospital on this land since 1829. For thousands of years, this has been the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. This land is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work here. I would like to encourage you all to learn more about the land that you are currently located on. So there's a QR code that links you to a page that will give you so much information on the land where you currently live, work on. Additionally, the link with the QR code at the bottom of the page is if you're interested in learning more about Canada's Indigenous history. So I'll just give you a couple moments to capture these links, and then we can get started. So before I joined UHN as the ORT coordinator, I just want to give a little bit of background on myself. So I did my master's in Winnipeg at the University of Manitoba in the Department of Microbiology. When I was there, I did some work studying virulence regulators in the human pathogen Legionella pneumophila, and then I was looking at how those regulators impacted the infection of different hosts. This is the building I worked in. It is probably a good depictor of what it looks like now or about to look like, that a lot of snow and cold. So I'm glad to be in the relatively warm Toronto today, compared to Winnipeg anyway. So first things first, I'd like to start off with a time audit. I want everybody to think about your daily tasks, what's competing, excuse me, for your time every day. So using this Slido link, and Amanda, if she can put it into the chat as well, you can access that through your computer. I'd like you to answer this next question in a couple of words, meaning, so what do you struggle with most with managing your time day to day? There's a couple, and there'll be a couple of points within the presentation where we'll have some Slidos. So the link should work and update continuously through the presentation. So I'll give a few moments to add that. So hopefully this is working. I see some typing, so that's great. Work-life balance, absolutely. There's so many things to juggle, like your personal life, trying to run experiments, read a paper, all of that kind of thing. Multitasking, absolutely. Trying to do so many things at once. Any single task can take up as much time as I give it, so it's hard to not get bogged down. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, every task can really be never ending. Focusing on, absolutely. Distractions from electronics. Oh yes, I can be I can be guilty of that too. Sometimes I spend a little bit too much time on Instagram. Sometimes I'm trying to get work done, particularly during my graduate time. Competing priorities, spending too much time on a single project. Absolutely. These are such great responses. Estimating realistically how long a task will take. Absolutely. Trying to reach perfection. Oh, yes. Excuse me. Give it a couple more moments to put this, add your thoughts, and then we will move on to the next. Multiple tasks, absolutely. All right, so maybe we'll switch. We'll switch gears and keep going. There we go. Oh, sorry, those icons for some reason are blurry. So I also took some time to reflect myself on things that were competing for my time during graduate school, and all the things you said are completely true, and things that I definitely dealt with too. So things like reading papers, lab meetings, preparing for conferences, doing your coursework, doing your experiments, writing your thesis, writing a paper, all while trying to juggle spending time with friends, family, things like extracurriculars. Like, are you on a sports team? Are you on any committees? There's so many things that are that you're trying to do that really compete for your time. It's really challenging sometimes to navigate this, and often can be quite overwhelming. So that's something here today that I'm hoping to help you all navigate. So since we face so many demands, interruptions, and external distractions that really can interfere with our daily lives or your daily life as a researcher, I think time management is a really great tool to set yourself up for success. So just to begin, what exactly is time management? So by definition, time management is the use of deliberate actions to effectively use time to achieve specific goal-directed activities. So it's the use of good time management can improve your experience as a researcher in I think so many different ways. I know it did for myself once I started thinking about managing my time better. You'll notice things like increased productivity. You have a really great sense of direction. You have an idea of what you want to do. You're trying to schedule your time to get these tasks done. So I do think you can really see an increased productivity. I know I did. And all of that really can translate itself into an improved personal well-being. I know I felt a lot less stressed when I was trying to think about, oh my God, I have to do all these experiments. I have to read papers. I have to get a report ready. And it really helped me put things into perspective and kind of break things off, and ultimately kind of reduce the stress and made tasks and all of the stuff that we had to do much more manageable. So I just want to start off again and keep going with just like more of like a high level overview of some really great tips I think you can use for managing your time. We'll touch on these in a little bit more depth as we go through. But certain things that you want to consider when you're managing your time is you want to set realistic and attainable goals. Something else is you want to be realistic with your planning, and like, can you do a bunch of lab work? Can you attend a meeting? and prepare for it. Can you write a part of a manuscript, see a friend all in one day? So you really want to take a lot of different things into consideration when planning your day, planning your work. This is one of my favorites, prioritizing. So you really want to think about what's most important for your research at a given time, what needs to get done now, what can be done later at a later time, or perhaps delegated if that is appropriate. So next, actually, I shouldn't say prioritizing is my favorite. I think scheduling is my favorite. Scheduling and deadlines. I love a calendar. I love a list. I love a to-do list. I love all those things, probably more than I should. But so for example, when I was working on Fridays, I always like to make my growth media that day, just because I knew by Friday I was tired. So I was considering my energy levels for that day. And then I'd make my media for the next X period of time to hopefully improve and be more efficient with my experiments moving forward. But as we know, research can be a little bit unpredictable. Sometimes that whole big batch of media that you just made gets contaminated. So you do have to adapt your scheduling, adapt your time to be able to move forward and still work efficiently. And by perhaps changing priorities, if it's a big shift or a big odd result that you get, maybe you have to change some planning, and I can go on and on about this, but problem solving and adaptation is a big thread throughout for the remainder of the slide. So keep that one in mind as well. There's also a ton of different practical strategies for managing your time instead of the more theoretical stuff that I was talking about just on the last slide. So things like calendar management, color coding, time blocks are also really great ways to manage your calendar. To-do lists, another thing that I loved. I wish I could show you a to-do list that I had back in grad school. There was things highlighted, there was lines, there was different colors. It was quite chaotic, but for myself, it really kept things in perspective and allowed me to understand what needed to be done, as well as something that I've become more familiar with in my recent time since I've joined the ORTs, using project management software, something I definitely wish I used during research. So a few different things, which again, we'll touch on moving forward. So looking further into those strategies for managing your time. So the first thing I want to talk about is setting goals. So goals are, of course, blueprints for your future that can help impact your success. So essentially, we want to think about why are goals so important? So goals will help you progress further. It'll give you a sense of direction. You'll help stay organized and really reach your goals faster, because you know exactly what you need to do. You're trying to minimize the distractions in terms of things going, like projects going from left to right, or being pulled in other directions. So setting goals really can help you reach your goals faster through what I just mentioned. Thinking about goals a little bit more maybe in a different sense, rather than just like, I know that my goal is to do X, but thinking about goals in maybe a more rigid and methodical way is another way to help reach those goals in a certain way. So something I like it's called SMART goals. We're using the SMART method. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed. Excuse me. When you're setting your goals, it allows you to think about each goal a little bit more in depth to understand what you need to get done, and gives you some idea is you're adding some achievable points to your goal, some relevancy to your goal, so you can understand what you're doing, a time aspect, how you're going to accomplish your goal, and be very specific in what you want to accomplish. So thinking about just this statement here, I want to manage my time better. That's quite a general goal. How are you going to do it? What do you want to do to get it done? So instead of saying just generally, I want to manage my time better, you can be more specific. I will allocate 30 minutes each morning, to prioritizing tasks for that particular day. So it's timed. You could see some, it's achievable, and it's a very specific goal that you want to accomplish. So I just want to look at this a little bit further in terms of an example of SMART goal setting. So just going to break it down even a little bit further and give you more of a research and sciencey spin to it. So if your general goal is to write a literature review on the CRISPR gene editing technology, you can think about outlining your goals this way. animations are different. So anyways, so thinking about, instead of your general goal of just you want to write the literature review, what exactly do you want to do? So you want to conduct a comprehensive literature review on the current advancements in CRISPR gene editing technology within the next 2 weeks. That's very specific. You know exactly what you want to do for your goal. How are you going to keep yourself accountable and measure and give you some sort of metrics of metrics to determine when you've reached that goal? So what you want to do is here, think about some measurable actions. So here, identifying and summarizing at least 15 peer-reviewed articles from reputable scientific journals related to CRISPR. So here you know exactly what you want to do to reach your goal. You want to review at least 15 papers. Achievable. How are you going to achieve this goal? So to achieve this goal, you want to allocate 2 hours each day for the next 2 weeks to focus solely on reading and summarizing these relevant articles. So how are you going to achieve that goal is what you can think about during that portion. What's the relevancy of your goal? Why do you want to complete it? So you can think about things like, so for in this case, the goal contributes to gaining a thorough understanding of the current state of CRISPR technology, which is critical for designing and planning future experiments. So again, this adds a context of relevancy to why you want to complete this goal. And finally, the time aspect. You want to complete the literature review and compile a summary report by a specific arbitrary date. So this allows you to break down your goal in a very systematic and methodical way to really understand why, how, and when you want to complete that goal. So definitely an interesting spin on thinking about goals a little bit in a different sense. So next, I want to touch on prioritizing tasks. So prioritizing tasks is another really important aspect of time management, since categorizing tasks can establish, of course, your priorities and will ultimately improve planning and your project management as a whole. So when you're thinking about your tasks, you want to determine your most important tasks and other responsibilities. So what's the most important to you? And things you want to consider are your tasks in your short term as well as in the tasks in the long term, and kind of determine it that way. Because we often have so many competing demands and so it's really important to understand what takes priority. And of course, as I hope I've made very clear, and something I'll keep mentioning, is adaptation is key, because we all know research is unpredictable. As I mentioned, cultures get contaminated, experiments fail, we get unexpected results. So it's really a continuous process to continually reevaluate and adapting to different priorities. Perhaps your number one priority, because you got a weird result on your experiments, no longer is your number one priority. So you have to reshift and rejuggle all of those. Definitely certain important things to keep in mind. So again, prioritizing is probably maybe a little bit of an intuitive task. You probably can get an idea of what's important and what's not as important. But this is an interesting way that you can think about prioritizing, just like we talked about a more methodical way for goals. Here's maybe a more methodical way you can think about prioritizing tasks. And you can do that using something called the Eisenhower matrix. So what exactly is that? And it's a tool for prioritizing tasks that you need to complete based on urgency. So you can think about all the tasks that you have done, so you understand what you need to do, and then you can plot them in different points in this quadrant, in different squares on the quadrant. So is your task important and urgent? Is it important but non-urgent? Is it not that important but it's urgent? Or is it both not important and not urgent? So you can start placing your different tasks in the different boxes, and then using this matrix, it suggests a way or a list in terms of which you want to complete the task. So if something's important and urgent, that's something you want to complete first. And then moving down the list to second, if it's important but it's not urgent. If it's not important but it's urgent, that can go third. And then if something's not important but it's also urgent, that can perhaps be the last thing that you add to your list. So it's really an interesting framework that can allow you to organize your tasks again in more of an interesting way and think about it a little bit more methodically. thinking now, moving on, changing directions a little bit over to scheduling and calendar management. It's really great, and I find super, super helpful, is establishing a routine and keeping a schedule. As I mentioned, I love a calendar, especially an electronic calendar. I thrive on having a routine and a schedule, um, now and as a graduate student. A really great approach to begin creating your schedule is writing a really big list of tasks that you need to complete. I know, just like I mentioned, I had this huge to-do list, but also what I did was with that to-do list, I added dates and like sort of try and plan and schedule how my experiments were going to go in a perfect world if everything worked, but kind of moving through and have an idea of how things are going to flow over time. I thought that was super helpful. And then it also easily allowed me to, if something was contaminated or something didn't grow or there was a problem with the machine, I was able to shift things around and understand the timing that everything took. So I found that extremely helpful. And to do that, things that you can do to understand how to schedule and manage all these tasks is blocking off times for your task. I know someone mentioned at the beginning, it's hard to estimate time for each task, but I found it really helpful just to first block off a period of time that you think might work for that task, but then also in your schedule, incorporating free time. So if, let's say every morning at 9 a.m., you want to check your emails. So you spend an hour every morning at 9 checking your emails, determining what can be tackled at that given moment, what can wait till your next block of emails, and so on and so forth. But maybe some days you have a lot of emails that are going to take a long time to answer, or you have just a ton of them to do that day. I think it's really important to incorporate some free time into your schedule. So again, if those emails are going to take longer, if you have something unexpected come up, I think those free time blocks, I think, is a really great way to help also understand and learn how long tasks are going to take, which then you can adapt into your schedule maybe for the week after or whatever chunk that you decide. Something else I think you want to consider when you're building your schedule is energy levels at the different points in the day. I know when I was writing my thesis, I would always do my writing first thing in the morning. And so it would start usually around 8 o'clock in the morning. And I found I was super fresh to kind of get to start working on that. And then I found that as the day went on and later in the day, the quality of my writing decreased. So I really wanted to use my energy level the early part of the day to get the best writing out of the way. And then as time went on, and I would become more tired or a little less fresh in terms of my writing, I would shift focus a little bit, and I would do things in the evenings, like maybe change some figure legends, adjusting the different graph colors in case if there was something off. So I found that really helpful to work with my different energy levels during the day to still utilize the time as efficiently as possible. And again, as I've mentioned and I've already touched on, you do want to keep reflecting and adapting because you realize something's going to take you longer than you anticipated, or something takes you a lot less time than you anticipated. So just identifying how you're spending your time and adjusting and adapting that into future plans and future schedules is really key. This is a calendar, a screen grab of my calendar when I was in grad school. It was a particularly busy week because one, it was I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it was Thanksgiving. So there was, of course, a lot of family time happening then. But it was also the week for a lab meeting. It was week I was TAing that week. There was a seminar, and I was also doing a fairly big portion, hitting and working on one of my bigger objectives of my thesis. But certain things that I found incorporating into routine, the bacteria I worked on took 4 days to grow in the incubator, which was a pain for a number of reasons. But one thing I found really helpful is that my routine was every morning I would come in and streak out my bacteria for the experiments that I was doing down the road. I knew that way I wouldn't forget, because if I didn't grow it up that day, well, then 4 days later I was going to have it and I couldn't do those experiments. So it could really mess up a week. Particularly when I was doing these infection assays. Sorry, I don't want to keep going on to that, but it could really impact my entire week. So it was really important for me to set up that schedule and set up that routine to understand when and how to do things. Something else you may notice, is color coding. I was starting to play a little bit with colors. Obviously, it was a busy lab time, so everything's green. But there was some personal things that I was doing, like that I use personal for blue. So Thanksgiving dinner, it was my birthday also that week. So I went out for dinner and then spending time with my mom and doing some workout classes that I loved on a Wednesday. So some fun things that you may want to try in your own calendar management. So again, setting up those routines, putting them physically in your calendar, you'll get reminders. So that's also very helpful. So a couple things to consider there. So now I'm going to ask you guys all the question. How do you all manage your time? I know I'm here to suggest some ideas for you, but again, time management can work differently for different people. So I'd like to hear, how do you manage your time? Maybe it's something that didn't quite work for you. You can tell us if it didn't work. You can tell us if it works. Again, please don't be shy. It's a safe space, and it's the Slido is anonymous. So again, feel free to add whatever you'd like. Microsoft To Do and Google Calendar. Oh yes, calendars, love it. I'm not familiar with Microsoft To Do. Maybe I'll have to look that one up. Get that one down. Microsoft To Do. To-do lists and calendars. Oh yes, I'm right there with you. I'm blocking and yeah, absolutely. To-do lists and calendars, that's great. Also Microsoft To Do and calendar. Awesome. Still see some people typing, so I'll still leave a few moments for that. Reserving specific days for, oh yes, yeah, there's definitely like certain tasks, like I mentioned, I liked, but yeah, by Friday I was doing my media because I knew I was tired, or end of the day, you can definitely, yeah, that's awesome to do, is yeah, work on calendar, set alarms. Oh, I like that. I like set the alarm idea. I mean, sometimes absolutely when your calendar, you get notifications from your calendar, but maybe not all the time. Maybe you won't see them all the time. So I like the idea of alarms. Awesome. So I think I don't see anybody typing anymore. So I think has slowed down. So yeah, these are really awesome suggestions. So thank you for all. Oh, I'll let these last couple people type. Calendar blocking. Yeah, love it. Avoiding to look at electronics. Absolutely. There's some tactics and different ways that you can use to go to try and eliminate those distractions. Something I hadn't incorporated into here, but something I found really helpful during my undergrad. First, it was for studying, so it was maybe a little bit different, but it was the Pomodoro technique. And it was basically just like you would work on a timer for, I believe it was 25 minutes on, and then you give yourself a 5-minute break. And then you work for 5 minutes on, 25 minutes on, and then you get another 5-minute break. And after a certain cycle, they would give you an extended break. I can't remember exactly how many cycles anymore, but I found that really helpful because you're able to focus for a period of time, then it gave you a break. So it really helped me avoid that distraction, because I always found when I was trying to study, the phone definitely was a distraction for me. Planning your work and then working, absolutely stick to your plan. Yeah. You'll only know if your plan works if you stick to it. 20-20 method. Absolutely. Every 20 minutes, look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds. Oh, I love that. I think that's really awesome. Really, really awesome. 20-20. I'll have to remember that one. All right, so we'll move on now. So next, I want to just touch on a little bit of some time tracking softwares. So this is a list put together by Forbes of their 10 best time tracking softwares of 2023. I personally haven't worked with any of these ones, so I couldn't touch exactly on these ones. But since they suggested it was a list, I thought I'd like to share that with everybody. So the QR code on the screen will link everybody over to that website where you can learn a bit more and about these ones. And they also mentioned that Toggle Track is the best free plan out of these 10. So maybe something you want to consider. These oftentimes, the one I work with now, there's a bit of a learning curve that comes with it, trying to use it optimally and understand if it actually works best for you. But they're great assets. So I do highly recommend you do checking them out. But at the ORT, Amanda and I use a program called Asana, which is a task and management software. And it really, really does help us keep on track with both our shared responsibilities as well as our own individual responsibilities. Something that I really, really like about Asana is that it's quite easy to use. after I got used to it, all the features were quite self-explanatory. So I just want to point out a couple things. I hope you can see my mouse. If you can't, I'll verbally say where I'm pointing. But on the left side, so that here it's listed as recurring pieces. But this is the list of all the tasks that need to be done. And it's great for collaborating with others since you can assign people to those tasks. But it also works really great when you're working individually. Other things, you can assign due dates. It reminds you. It sends you emails and says, hey, there's a due date coming up for the thing that you need to do. So it really helps you. It keeps you on top with those constant reminders. Something else I wanted to mention too, with those tasks, you can also set dependencies. So essentially, like, I need to do this before I need to do the next thing. So the second task won't pop up until you complete the task that needs to be done first. So I find that really helpful. Keeps you on track that way. And as well, those due dates can also be reoccurring. So if you want to put in, I want to check my email every morning at 9 a.m., you can put in as it reoccurring every day of the week or every other day, however you'd like to set that cycle. You can also assign your tasks to different projects. I find that really great, especially when you're managing a number of projects. And the view that I'm showing in the screen capture on the slide is more of a listing and kind of an overview of everything that you have to do. But you can also change it to look at as a calendar view, so you can see it in a calendar, as well as you can see as a timeline where it can show you how things are progressing and when you need to do things in more of a timeline kind of way. One last thing that I find really great too is the priority aspect on the far right. You can assign if it's like a high priority item, if it's a low priority, medium priority. So that again really helps you put things into perspective when planning and managing your time. And especially in different views, if you're adding different priorities and you're adding different projects, it color codes everything as well. So I find that that helps too when you're giving a quick glance over something. Your mind can associate it with color, so you can understand how much of each task is complete or what's left to be done. I know this was really quick overview of Asana, but we love it. So if there's any questions about this one that you have, we're happy to talk to you about that too. Talk to you there. So shifting gears into a little bit of a different direction. This is a famous quote from my grandma. Why do it today when you can do it tomorrow? I find it was perhaps maybe not the greatest rule of thumb to follow in certain circumstances. Maybe it's okay when you're categorizing something into using the Eisenhower matrix that's not important, not urgent. So you can do it tomorrow if you believe that is something that can wait, or it is a lower priority item. But maybe a general rule of thumb, maybe not the best model to follow. Sorry, Grandma. So the thing I want to talk about next is procrastination. So thinking about procrastination can really occur in a cycle. So it's essentially which is known as the procrastination cycle. So essentially, it's procrastination that leads to more procrastination, that leads to more procrastination. And I mean, it's just this cyclical negative feedback loop that's just causing more procrastination. This happens often when you have maybe you have a new task that you're kind of worried about. You don't really know how to start it, complete it. So it really sets some panic, especially when the deadline starts approaching. You're like, oh my God, I still have to write this assignment and I don't know what to do, and the deadline's coming up. So there's a sense of panic that pops in. I mean, it can lead to a poor outcome, unfortunately, but we're here today to hopefully give you some ideas of how to maybe break that cycle. But just generally talking about procrastination, why does this happen and what causes it? So there's some fear of failure. So you don't understand exactly what you need to do, and you don't want to get a bad grade on that assignment, or you don't want to spend all the time doing that experiment when you're not sure how to do it, and it might fail. Another reason is poor time management skills. So hopefully you're learning something here today that if you are procrastinating a little bit, hopefully this can help break that cycle. Distractions again. So it's easy to look at your phone, look at something else when you're trying to do that work. So things like the 20-20-20 rule or the Pomodoro technique, which we talked about a little bit before, are great ways of breaking your distractions, as well as a lack of clear goals. The list can go on, but I think these are some of the ones that I thought I'd like to highlight. So instead, I thought I'd flip it around this time. I'd like everyone to think about some ways that you've overcome procrastination, and just open the poll. And so you tell us how you've overcome procrastination, then I'll touch on some ideas why some ways that I think you can do that. So again, I'll leave that open. And again, if anybody wants to talk out loud, anybody wants to unmute yourself, please, you're more than welcome to at this point, or keep adding to the Slido. Determination and plans. Absolutely. I force myself to work on a task that I'm dreaming for just 15 minutes, and then eventually it breaks me out of the loop and makes starting a task a little less overwhelming. Absolutely. That's like breaking that big task into small, like manageable chunks. Like a 15-minute chunk seems, if you think, oh my God, this task is going to take me 2 hours to complete, that's definitely seems a little bit more daunting than than saying I'm going to do this for 15 minutes, and that can help you work through that. I think that's a really awesome way of doing that. Exactly. It's breaking the task into small and then planning it over days. That's really great. I've definitely done that before too. Hardest task first. Yes, I really like that because it gets the kind of the worst out of the way first. I think that's a great approach. That's just like when I was doing my when I was showing you my calendar. One morning I did all the lab chores. I mean, who likes lab chores? But like we're trying to deal with all the stinky waste and all of that stuff. Definitely got that out of the way first thing in the morning, so I didn't have to worry about it. I try to start it, work at it a bit, and then with my time frame, absolutely, yeah, keep within your time frame that you're thinking, and then again, it helps you get through it in a more manageable way. Setting a deadline, absolutely. Something I also found something really helpful in terms of deadlines is just like, if not, you're just telling yourself, I'm going to complete this task by Friday. Tell somebody else, he's like, hey, I'm going to get this. I want to get this to you by Friday. So at least it kind of gives yourself some accountability to that as well, to your own deadline. That's something I've done, and I quite like that. I found that quite helpful for myself. Set my own deadline 2 days before the real one. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Gives yourself some time to breathe a little bit. Absolutely. Make a list and have it chalk. I love that. There was someone in my lab who was definitely that she said she had to give herself some chocolate. So I've seen it happen and it works. So I love that. Make a list and have chocolate. Turn off notifications. That's another really great one. Yeah, those can definitely be distracting. Even an Apple Watch, you're not seeing the notification, but every time you feel that buzz on your watch or on your wrist, excuse me, is can be super distracting. Just try to start yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes it's hard. You may just need some, absolutely. Something else that I wanted to mention, which I think I forgot to, but just like you can really add this into the procrastination step as well, is like, if you're not sure how to do something, or you're not sure how to, like, what task to manage at one point, absolutely talking with somebody in your lab, maybe your supervisor. I found, like, when I was working with, I was trying to juggle these like 3 really kind of crucial objectives within my thesis, and they were all important, and some of them weren't working, some of them were working, some of them was like, and so there's just so much going on, and I just needed some help, like reprioritizing and trying not to procrastinate some of I wanted to not procrastinate certain tasks, but it kind of felt like that was starting to happen because I was trying to do other things. So I was being pulled in so many directions. So again, like, I was setting myself some deadlines, blocking off time, and then speaking with like my supervisor. She really helped me kind of refocus things. I thought was really great. So I think that's a really great tactic to doing that. So let me give maybe a couple more seconds if anybody has any last minute things. And then, oh yes, more kids will absolutely keep you on your toes, I'm sure. All right. So move on a little bit. I think I agree completely with what everyone has said, and I'm basically just I'm gonna reiterate what everybody just said, and that's kind of what I was hoping. So many of those time management principles that we talked about throughout the last 40 minutes have really can really be used not only to improve your time management, but can also be used on the flip side to help overcome that procrastination. Because again, like, you can break your tasks into smaller, more manageable ones. It's less overwhelming. It's less daunting to see a 2-hour task versus a 15-minute task, like somebody mentioned. Again, setting those achievable goals. It's like, you know exactly what you want to do instead of saying, I want to be able to cure this extremely rare disease. If part of the process in search for that cure, maybe you have to make a knockout strain. So the first thing you need to do to make a knockout strain, maybe the first thing you need to do is grow up a plasmid. So it's just like those goals are much more manageable and achievable. It's easier and less overwhelming to think of, okay, I just need to grow up and isolate a plasmid versus I need to cure this disease. Deadlines, again, I completely agree with that one. And routines, those are, again, deadlines, routines, those ones were my favorite ones now and as a grad student. So again, just to summarize, just why time management is just so important since we're nearing the end of the presentation. So time management is such a hugely important tactic to utilize when you're working in research, but I mean, really can be applied to your day-to-day life. Excuse me. It has so many benefits, like increased productivity. You're able to manage your tasks better. You're able to get more done in a more efficient manner. You could see a reduction in stress. I know that I did once I was able to work with my time and work on the experiments and work on my work in a more manageable way. So I definitely felt a lot less stress once I was able to work on that. It also I think it can also enhance the quality of your work. So if you're less distracted, you're less stressed, you're more productive. I think that could also really improve the work that you're doing at that given time, even if you're working on it in 15-minute blocks. I think that's, for me, it was more, I had more, my attention span, I couldn't sit there for 3 hours doing the same thing. I had to break it up into different points. So that really helped my quality of work. You can see yourself having a better work-life balance. I know that you're incorporating some family and friend time into your schedules. And I found that really beneficial and really was affected, again, helped since I was less stressed because I was seeing my family more, my friends more, and be more productive. Again, it's all, I think they're all intertwined. And again, increased motivation, which I think is really great. And again, the list could go on and on and on. And again, something else I just want to keep reiterating is just like, you want to adapt, you want to be able to change, everything's could change and how you're managing your time. So again, super important. And yeah. So again, I just want to open up the poll one more time. If anybody has any final thoughts, if anybody has anything that they want to add, if they have some strategies that I never mentioned that they think that you might think might work, if there's any questions, comments with that. There's also, since we're kind of nearing the end, there's also a feedback form. This was my first workshop, facilitating workshop with URT. So if there's any feedback you'd like to have, there's a feedback form. If Amanda can put that into the chat, and there'll be a QR code on the next page. So again, any final thoughts, questions, comments, floor is open. People typing, which is great. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you've learned something. And yeah, so I'll just switch over to the next slide. Okay, so you can see the QR code. So again, we want to hear your feedback. So please consider filling out our feedback survey. And as well, if there's any programming that you want to hear and interested in 2024, maybe something that we haven't offered before or something you want us to host more and that sort of thing, please fill out that ideas form. So with that, we've reached the end. So I could stick, well, if there's if there's anybody has any comments, thoughts, I can move this back over to the Slido. And then, yeah, thank you for coming.